What's a deep, dark rabbit hole to research when bored? This should give you an hour or two. List of unusual deaths. n.wikipedia.org. Daniel John O'Brien, 31, committed suicide by jumping into one of the engines of a British Airways Boeing 747 at Piarco International Airport, Trinidad. He is said to have scaled an airport wall in the nude, attacked 4 security guards and stole their 4-wheel drive vehicle, drove the vehicle into the jet, then clambered out of the wreckage, smeared grease on his bleeding shoulder and hurled himself into one of the plane's engines. Now that's some ducking commitment. I feel like there has to have been an easier way to accomplish death. Easier? Yes. More legendary? None. Shipwrecks. Been absolutely obsessed with them the past few days. Therese, so much to discover and learn about, and so much corruption as well as just interesting circumstances that these huge machines go down in. And adding to that, technical diving accidents. Especially in shipwrecks. You can dive down to the sunken Andrea Doria, that wrecked because another enormous ship collided sideways into it, ship and collect first-class dinnerware as plunder, but people have died, seemingly becoming lost in the complete darkness of the halls inside, or user error in any capacity, such as not having the correct oxygen tank levels leading to hallucinations and false confidence that makes you drown. Edit. I can't thank you guys enough for all the media recommendations and personal anecdotes from these shipwrecks. I have a lot to binge for the next few weeks, and I am fascinated by the stories shared in these comments. I'm reading every one. The sea is completely indifferent, and if you duck around you find out. Can confirm about sea survival stories. A good place to start would be the Discovery Channel show I Shouldn't Be Alive. That led me to research one of the episodes about 2 survivors, Brad Kavanaugh and Deborah Scaling-Kiley. It started out with maybe 5 survivors, and one of them had septicemia from an open wound on her leg, and the water at the bottom of the lifeboat was filthy. They had to dump her body overboard and listen as the sharks tore her body apart. Even though it was all done by actors years later, it was horrifying to watch. A video sometimes shows up here of a scuba diver recovering bodies from a wreck at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and suddenly he sees a hand reach into the water. Harrison Ojigbo Kene survived for 3 days in the trapped air and was recovered somewhere around May 29, 2013. www.youtube.com watch? VUM1WIME9U8 #X200B, and then there's the story of the sinking of the Oceanos on August 4, 1991. Captain Yannis Avranis abandoned ship, leaving all the passengers to fend for themselves. An employee, specifically a guitarist, ended up heading the rescue effort on the ship along with his girlfriend. They saved hundreds. There's a great little group exercise you can take to see if your mindset matches that of the U.S. Coast Guard when it comes to survival items, ranked by importance. Just Google Lost at Sea Instructions 8/19/2015 and you'll see what I mean. The guitarist one is very funny. Everyone got rescued. I was calling, Mayday. 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 And just waiting for somebody to answer, Moss says. A big, deep, rich voice eventually replied. Yes, what is your Mayday? Relieved, Moss explained that he was on the cruise ship Oceanos and that it was sinking. Okay. How long have you got left to float? I don't know, we've got the starboard railings in the water, we're rolling around, we've taken on a huge amount of water, Moss said. We still have at least 200 people on board. Okay. What is your position? We're probably about halfway between the port of East London and Durban. No. What are your coordinates? Moss had no idea what their coordinates were. What rank are you? Well, I'm not a rank, I'm a guitarist. A moment's silence. What are you doing on the bridge? Well, there's nobody else here. Who's on the bridge with you? So I said, it's me, my wife, the bass player, we've got a magician here. Quite a story too. BBC.com. Bards, roll for initiative. The saved section of your Reddit user profile. I've saved so much shit and then promptly forgot about it. Just like I'm going to do with this thread. I've been on Reddit so long it's like an archaeological dig going through my saved list. Money laundering and how laundered money flows around the world. Most info is public from gov agencies like the CIA and State Department. Yeah, not a cop but work in fintech and have done fraud and AML, anti-money laundering, detection, computer stuff. It's pretty depressing. It was eye-opening when I was younger, realizing 1. How money laundering looks a lot like most tax evasion schemes. From a computer detection standpoint they're almost the same thing when all you can view is say financial transactions and records. 2. How many prominent banks, politicians, and authorities will alert on models built using the information in 1.3. How little cops and the government fund investigations and detection of such activities. Usually our models were just so some institution could check a box, and the unspoken truth was that the execs at large financial institutions didn't really put a lot of time or effort into our work, even when it was good. There's a reason the drug cartels operate with impunity, and the George Carlin bit was 100% right when he said the way to really fix a lot of ills in the world is to start forcing international bankers to see jail time when they knowingly operate with unsavory people. From Trump and the Clintons, this ill is bipartisan, on down to maybe some of your local bankers where you live. A lot of them probably deserve jail time when you start considering their financial statements in the light of how the world would probably look if we were all honest, law-abiding citizens. When I worked at a call center, we often had quiet times and the internet blocked most things. Unusual wiki articles kept me entertained for quite some time though. It's full of random strange things. The wiki for the timeline for far future events. If you want to feel insignificant and learn some shit, check this out. n.wikipedia.org. I can't believe you've done this. Volcanoes scare me, and now I'm gonna be anxious as hell for the next 17,000 years. Feral children. I had to stop reading these accounts because it made me too sad seeing over and over that the rescuers almost always killed the kids' animal families and the children pretty much never had any quality of life after. I wonder how long that could go, without outside intervention. Like, could they become adults and still remain with those animals? The history of lobotomies and cannibalism. I have spent more time researching these topics than the time taken to write a 90-page essay. Super fascinating if you don't get grossed out. Lobotomies disturb me in more ways than I can express. It's a profound violation of your identity and self. To have your very mind mutilated until you don't even recognize what you are. That total robbing of you as a person, leaving you mentally inert, is a thing out of horror. Lobotomies have always been of interest to me, primarily because of how ludicrous it sounds to my mind that anyone rationalized it as a legitimate use of medical services. If you haven't watched Netflix's Ratched series, there is a scene depicting a lobotomy being done. It's not visually graphic, but the sound they portray was ducking haunting. Good God, if it actually sounded anything like that, it would sit uneasy with me for years. The worst thing about it, emo, is that they use lobotomies as a punishment against people who pissed off someone in power. Eva Perón, Evita, was lobotomized in the last few months of her life as she was dying from cancer. She was the first lady of Argentina and insanely powerful herself, essentially the figurehead of the nation. Her husband likely had her lobotomized in order to modify her personality behavior as well as to reduce pain, as she was becoming increasingly radical by attempting to arm workers etc., and he wanted to calm her down. She fits the discussion topic too, emo, very fascinating person. The domino effect that led up to World War I and then later World War II. It's interesting to learn about, but it's just a clusterduck of easily preventable situations. My history professor would always say in college that some historians consider World War II really World War 1.5 and was just a continuation of World War I. World War II was just World War I storming out of the room after an argument and coming back while yelling and another thing. I've also heard the World Wars referred to as the Second 30 Years' War, which I find a really fascinating perspective. Both were periods of conflict on a global scale, with a relative lull for a time, before large-scale action resumed. Many don't realize that, for some countries, especially in Europe and the Middle East, World War I didn't end, it just devolved into numerous civil conflicts, such as the Armenian Genocide, the Finnish Civil War, the Russian Civil War. Hell, the Italians went to war with Yugoslavia before the ink had dried on the tray of Versailles. Poland and Ukraine went to war, then became best friends, and fought the Bolsheviks together, all in the same year. World War I in a sense ended because everybody decided, duck this, y'all figure it out yourselves, I'm going home and finding someone else to fight. Instead of big team fights, it just became a bunch of battle royales or tag team matches. Interwar action was damn near as intense as World War I had been. Caving and cave diving accidents. Accidentally watched one in YouTube, then went down the rabbit hole. This led to some more parallel topics of horrible fates, bad deaths etc. After a few days, started getting disturbed sleep as this became my routine of watching before the sleep time. With self-restraint, finally I got out of it. I've been watching these too. It's insane how many seasoned veterans just make one little mistake and they're doomed. Especially the sheer helplessness, impossibility of rescue, darkness and isolation. Man, no, thank you. Not ever. The sign outside of that one famous underwater cave says it best: there is nothing in here worth dying for. You should go check out Scary Interesting on YouTube. Bunch of crazy cave diving gone wrong videos among other things. People who go missing. This one I'm particularly fascinated with for some reason. Maybe it's because I like this YouTuber and how he formats his videos, but I've watched this video about a missing Canadian girl 3 times. U2.B personally, I think she was groomed by a dude she met online and that guy kidnapped her and is holding her captive, like the Joseph guy from Austria years back. On October 27, 1988 I went to breakfast at the student residence at the university I was attending. Wasn't too busy and wound up chatting with a guy as we ate our cornflakes. He seemed nice enough. 20 hours or so later he vanished, and was never seen again. Vancouver.citynews.ca. It's been nearly 34 years and there is still no clue as to whatever happened.